This machine right here is perhaps the single most underrated tool in any gym. This is not an ad for this piece of kit, but this setup right now is a 45-degree back extension. Now, 45-degree back extensions are perfect if you're trying to rehab or strengthen your lower back. They're also really good for strengthening your hamstrings and glutes. So overall, it's a fantastic machine to strengthen your posterior chain. The problem is most people are either using this wrong or they're teaching it wrong. Now, there's this dogma in the fitness world where this piece of kit can only be used in one way. Now, in my opinion, that's not the only way. I'm going to show you 3 different variations today. So depending on what your goal is, you can use it in any one of these 3 ways. So let me show you what a 45-degree back extension looks like. So you come down and up, down and up. Now, this isn't particularly one technique over another. I'm just showing you what it looks like. The problem is most comments on the videos I've seen using back extensions, including my own, are that people like to critique a certain way. The pad's too high or the pad's too low. You shouldn't be bending your back, or you should be bending your back. So let's talk about a little bit of science. First of all, the exercise is called back extensions. So if we want to do back extension, this is a spine. If we do back extension, that is bending the back this way. That's an extension. This is hyperextension. Hyperextension is not something you necessarily want because you can get some compression of these bumpy bits, the spinous processes. So when we're using a back extension, in my opinion, we want to be working the lower back. So we want to get some flexion in the spine, and we also want to then get some extension. The problem is a lot of people, particularly on the internet, say that you have to keep your back straight or keep your back neutral and only bend from the pelvis, bend from the hips. Now, this is a good variation if you want to strengthen your glutes or your hamstrings. But here's the thing, if you have a lower back problem and you need to strengthen your lower back, you don't just want to strengthen it in this isometric position. Isometric meaning keeping the muscles at the same length. So this would help with stability. This would help with core control of the spine. But this won't help the erector spinae muscles in causing extension and flexion. Our bodies are designed to move. And if our bodies are designed to move, we need to get movement through all of our joints. So if you're only locking your spine in one position, I don't think that's such a good idea. So here's variation number 1. This is the variation I use a lot in the rehab process or strengthening my lower back and my patients' lower backs. So let me show you what it looks like, then I'll break it down. Okay, so here's what we do. The hip pads, first of all, I'm setting the height so it's just underneath the bony parts of my pelvis. So that's just underneath these bony parts here. This is called the ASIS. By having this quite high, so just underneath these bony parts, this is blocking my pelvis, so it's not allowing me to easily rotate it or roll it forwards. So from here, I'm thinking about lengthening my lower back. So I'm flexing through the spine as much as I can. Then from here, I want to get extension. So I start by lifting the chest, and I keep lifting the chest all the way up, thinking about engaging my lower back till I get to about here. Now, I'm not hyperextending, I'm not coming all the way up. I'm just coming up to a fairly neutral position and then flexing from the spine and then extending by lifting the chest. So in a way, it kind of looks a bit like a wave. This is sped up. But if you're doing it on your own, I wouldn't suggest doing it sped up. So keep it nice and slow. So in this variation, I'm really focused on engaging my lower back, getting that extension through the spine. What I'm not doing is rolling the pelvis. So I'm trying purposefully to not use my glutes and my hamstrings. Now that's the variation that I use a lot. And a lot of people on the internet would say, you're doing it wrong. So they like to only do this variation. So I'm going to lower this down by 1 notch. So now the pads is slightly lower, which means that as I'm on here, it allows my pelvis to roll over the pads. So this variation I'm going to show you now, variation 2, is more for glutes and hamstrings. Again, let me show you first and then I'll explain. So what we're doing here is we're keeping the spine neutral. So as I'm coming down, I'm not flexing through the spine. I'm fixing the spine and I'm rolling the pelvis forwards. And then as I come up, I'm squeezing from the glutes or I'm squeezing from the hamstrings. As I come up, I think about pushing my pelvis into the pad. So that engages my glutes even more. Another thing I've done, which you may not have noticed, is I've slightly externally rotated my feet. So at the top, it just allows more activation in the glutes. With my spine, you could either have a neutral spine or have it slightly flexed. It doesn't matter too much as long as you're keeping it still. By having a flexed spine, it takes out the assistance from the lower back, the erector spinae muscles. So this variation is now working my pelvis and hamstrings a lot more than it is working my lower back. So those are the two really awesome variations, and neither of those are wrong. The third variation is kind of back to the first one, and that one is more of an isometric hold. And I use this on patients for testing their lower back strength. So I get them into this position and I simply just get them to hold this position. Now the reason I get them to hold this position is because I want to see how long they can hold this position. If it's 0 to 1 minute, it's bad and they need to really focus on building strength. If it's 1 to 2 minutes, it's not too bad. It could be worse, but I still think that it needs improvement. If it's between 2 to 3 minutes, I'm happy with that for most of my patients, and anything more than 3 minutes is really good. So if you have access to one of these at your gym, why not go and try this and see how long you can hold this position and time it, and then let me know in the comments. Let me know how many minutes you can hold for. So that's a really nice way just to see how much endurance and how much strength is in the lower back. So I use this all the time with my clients, this technique, this machine, and I find it such a valuable tool in strengthening. As you get stronger, you can then start adding in more resistance. So you could grab a dumbbell and you could do the same thing, holding some weights. And the good thing about that is you can progressively increase the weight. So start with zero weight, and then progressively go up as like 2.5 kilos to 5 kilos, 10, 15, 20. Now, when a lot of my patients start with this exercise, they can very rarely do 10 repetitions in one go. So what I would tend to do is maybe 2 sets of 5 repetitions to start with, and then we gradually build in more repetitions. And as we get to 10 repetitions, then we can add in a 3rd set. Once you can complete 3 sets of 10 with body weight, that's the time when you can start adding in more resistance by adding in more weight. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, well, what about the shear forces going through the spine? So some people would argue that the small muscles in the spine are designed to keep the spine stable. So as I'll come in closer so you can see better. So a lot of these areas are controlled by very small muscles, which are stabilizer muscles. Now those muscles are not necessarily movers of the spine. They might be more aimed at keeping the spine stable and still. But there are other larger muscles like the erector spinae, which are designed to move the spine. So I just think your body is designed to move, so why not get the body moving? Now you could also say, okay, well, flexion is not good for the spine if you have a disc problem. So theoretically, if I'm flexing in the spine, that adds the pressure on a disc, and if you have a disc bulge, it could potentially make the disc bulge worse. But the difference here is that you're in an inverted position. So actually there's more traction going through your spine, which means that you don't have that pressure. You don't have that external pressure of gravity plus weight pushing down on the vertebra, causing more of the disc to be pushed out. So from a disc point of view, I've used this on hundreds of patients with lower back pain who have had disc problems. So I don't see any reason why you can't use this. If you're in an acute phase of back pain, this is definitely not appropriate. So if something has just happened, you're in a lot of pain, using a back extension is not an appropriate exercise to use if you've got a lot of pain. So if you've gone past the flexibility phase and then into phase 3, which is the strengthening phase, and that is the time to use this. If you want to find out more about the 3 phases, I talk about that in a lot more detail in my lower back pain ebook, which I will link down below in the description. So in terms of mistakes to avoid, not many, but one of the ones I see is people doing too much of a dynamic movement. Dynamic movement and momentum means you don't have control. This is why when you come up to the top, I always say pause and then come down slowly. That way you know you're in control. So don't use momentum unless, of course, it's something you're trying to build in more of a dynamic movement, trying to get some explosive strength through the hips. But if you're just starting out, keep it steady, keep it controlled. That's really the main mistake that I see people make. As long as you keep yourself in control, this is a great exercise. So go and give this exercise a try. If you have any questions about the back extension, please let me know in the comments. But honestly, this is the best piece of kit for your lower back strengthening. So go and give it a try. See how long you can hold that exercise for, and let me know how you get on.